In this video, just thought I would share a couple of passages from this Men of Tomorrow book by Jared Jones, and you could find this on Amazon or elsewhere. Cover price is $15, but you can get it much cheaper. And I thought this really sums up a piece of Americana, this type of story. It's real interesting, and it just, you know, this is like so American in a way. And here's the story. I'm going to read it here. Here we go. Production was limited not by the market, but by time on the printer's schedules and the availability of paper. Sometimes a sudden whirlwind of paper or cash brought a comic book into existence out of nothing. Lev Gleason, former printing salesman, newly flung into the ranks of publishers, found himself with a chance to reserve a few million pages of pulp one day in early 1941. The catch was that he had to stake his claim for it immediately, or someone else would get it, and that he had to turn it into something saleable immediately, or the distributor wouldn't advance him the money to pay the bill. So Gleason bought the paper with the promise that he'd have his comics pages at the printers on the following Monday, except that it was Friday and he didn't have a comic to print. Gleason turned to his favorite cartoonist and packer, Charlie Biro, and said, "Get me 64 pages by Monday morning." All he asked was that his one-named superhero, Daredevil, have the lead story. How they fill the rest of the pages would be up to them. Biro shared a cheap art studio on 52nd Street among jazz clubs and strip joints with his best friend, Bob Wood, and Batman's star artist, Jerry Robinson. Wood brought in his brothers, Dick and Dave, to help. Robinson brought in his roommates, Bernie Klein and Mort Meskin, and a fellow ghost artist for Bob Kane, George Russos. They were all 19 or 20 years old and had already been published comic artists for at least a year. They had two drawing tables in the place. One of them, big enough for two guys to squeeze into. Whoever wasn't at a table worked on the floor or propped board on his knees. They plunged in with loud jokes and insults, making up stories and characters, breaking out pages in pencil, flying through Friday nights smoking and drinking coffee. Robinson created London, a newsman covering the London Blitz who puts on a mask to fight the Nazis. He didn't know it, but it was the first comic book story to tackle the real events of the war. Russos liked the idea so much that he came up with Blackout, a Hungarian scientist whose lab is bombed by the Nazis and ends up covered in black fur. Saturday they kept grinding, still calling to each other with problems but saving their words now. Saturday night they kept pushing, lettering when they got sick of drawing, dropping whole captions and shortening sentences when they got sick of lettering. Then the snow came, the biggest blizzard to hit Manhattan in years. On Sunday morning the cartoonists found a 5-foot drift against the door of their building. They drew lots to see which poor bastard had to go find food. Klein lost. The rest of them dug the snow out of the doorway, and Bernie climbed over the banks into the middle of 52nd Street where the snow was lowest and trudged off in search of any grocery store or restaurant open on a Sunday in Midtown after a blizzard. He was gone for hours. The others kept drawing, getting hungrier and angrier, increasingly certain that Klein had either abandoned them or frozen to death, until finally Bernie lurched in, chilled to the bone. He had to hike down 6th Avenue to 34th Street before he found a dairy open, and he'd brought back his prize, 2 bottles of milk and a dozen eggs. "For Christ's sake," yelled Biro, "what are we going to do with raw eggs? The studio had no kitchen." There was plenty of paper to light a fire and a bathtub to light it in, but nothing to cook the eggs on. Then someone pointed to the tiles on the bathroom wall. They pried off the tiles with art knives, heated them with burning scrap paper, and cooked 1 egg on each tile. It was just enough food to get them through Sunday afternoon and a long Sunday night. When Monday finally dawned, they were whitening out most of the egregious gaffes and decided they could leave the rest, and Daredevil was done. It was a weekend that captured an era. 20 years later, Robinson told the story to Jules Pfeiffer, who used it for a centerpiece in The Great Comic Book Heroes. From there, Michael Chabon turned it into a passage in The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Commerce, luck, and youth had never come together so perfectly to create a moment so ever-cently American. It paid off too. Oh, the comic book they made that weekend was a mess. But it was loud and colorful and full of fighting heroes. And here and there, from the seediness and haste emerged those moments of unannounced beauty, a perfect line, a living figure, a composition of nearly accidental grace that are so heartbreaking and so liberating in chunk culture. Gleason ordered more issues of Daredevil. Biro, Wood, Robinson, Meskin, Klein, and Russos kept working. So there you have a passage from the book. Pretty interesting reading. To those who don't know, the Daredevil they mentioned is the Golden Age Daredevil. It's not the Marvel character at all. And that was like 1940s America in comic books. If you like this, let me know, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.